Educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast, where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here is your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
Thank you very much for coming on today. I have a great individual, great personality, great information. This person is going to share with us today. She is a former financial advisor and mortgage advisor, with countless conversations with women, specifically divorced, widow, and single women who felt overwhelmed, embarrassed, and frustrated when it came to their finances, investing, and money. She's also a certified life coach, certified executive coach, and a published author of 4 books, which we'll touch about a little later on. And one of the things that she calls herself, and we'll start off the show with this, right? But before that, let's welcome PattI Handy. PattI, thank you for coming on the show today.
Hey, Maurice, it's great to be here. Appreciate you having me.
Sure. So, as I stated, there's one thing in your bio that you talk about that, and we're going to start off a little funny, right?
I know what you're saying.
So you're a self-proclaimed chocoholic, right? So, so what is that? What does that mean? How do you say yourself you're a self-proclaimed chocoholic?
So I pretty much every day have some piece of chocolate.
Really?
I don't eat huge amounts every day, but I eat some kind of chocolate every day.
Really?
That's scary and yes, it's my vice. I don't drink coffee. I'm not a big, alcoholic drinker. I'm gluten-free, so I'm really cautious on other things. So chocolate is my vice. So there you go.
Really? So with that, talking about chocolate, they talk about how it affects you health-wise, you mentally, things like that. So, one of the things that we want to talk about is just creating a healthy mindset towards finances, right? And building that financial freedom. So how can someone make or their mindset can make or break their financial freedom?
Yeah, we'll start with chocolate.
Okay.
I'm kidding. The money mindset and our money story is such an impactful piece of our success financially and really in life in general. This conversation about the money mindset can go on for probably hours, but very high level, we are taught at a very young age, typically from birth to age 8, we have an open mind and we hear things from our parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, whoever it is that, is taking care of us, and we hear the conversation and we absorb those statements as truth. So if we hear, we can't afford that, what do you think, money grows on trees, or rich people are greedy, or rich people only get rich by hurting other people, that's in our subconscious mind kind of playing in this loop. And if we believe that to be true, we will, as adults, learn, again, subconsciously that money is bad, and we subconsciously kind of deflect it, so to speak. It's the opposite of being a magnet and attracting it. So if we identify with somebody who is always struggling, always, just challenged with money, and that's our identity, we're going to continue to attract that, and we're going to continue to just have that in our lives. Where conversely, if you grew up in a family where money was abundant and the conversation was very open to, gosh, there's opportunities everywhere, there's possibilities everywhere, and there's abundance everywhere. It's not a zero-sum game. If I get a lot of money, it doesn't hurt other people. And if you hear that, that's playing in your loop.
Right.
So that's a big piece of why we do well with money and why we don't do well with money.
So you spoke about the family aspect, and for those that might have been in a place of lack, if you will, how could someone change that mindset from that of lack to something of growth, or, just a little bit of abundance, if you will? How can someone change that mindset?
Sure, that's a great question. First, it takes time. It's not going to be something that changes overnight. You've learned this and you've heard this for decades, and your subconscious is very powerful. So the first step is really being mindful of what it is that you remember hearing. And that involves, doing some deep reflection. It might take some time to kind of uncover that. But if it's hard to remember some of those things that you've heard, look at your external life. If you're happy with it, then that's great. If you're one that is constantly struggling or just kind of climbing this uphill battle, you're dealing with subconscious issues. So be mindful of that. Try to identify those. I say pull out a journal and write down some of those things that you remember hearing. And then it's your job to kind of poke holes in those things and prove those to be wrong. Those are not truths. Rich people are not greedy. There's a lot of very generous, charitable, lovely, wealthy people. There's a lot of broke people who are not so nice, right? I always say that money makes you more of what you already are. If you're a generous, loving, giving person, more money will make you able to give more, right? If you're a jerk, you're a bigger jerk with money, right? So start with identifying, what those thoughts could be. Look at your external reality today, poke holes and find the lies, if you will, in what you have heard, and then work on unlearning and reprogramming that. And that's where it takes time. And there's many methods that we do to do that, which includes, hypnosis. There is subliminals. There is meditations. There is very proactive work. I mean, there's breath work. There's child work. Going to the inner child and healing that inner child situation. There's many things that we do to help relearn the reality and the truths of the world. And the truth is that there is an abundance everywhere. There's opportunities everywhere. And because you or I do really well does not mean our neighbor is hurt.
Right. So when someone gets influenced by social media, or let's say Real Housewives of something, right? And we look at these individuals as maybe what the goal is or what the bar might be, but we feel as though we don't have the talent or the resource. How do we even change that? Because we see what this is, but we get intimidated by it. So how would you encourage someone to not pay attention to that so much?
Yeah, what is it? Brene Brown says the comparison is the what does she say? Don't compare yourself to others. I don't remember what she says, formally, but it's like that is the death of our well-being, emotionally, mentally, financially. And the reality is, the social media, such a huge percentage of what you see on social media isn't true. It's made to be just, everyone's happy and doing great and everything is lovely, but everybody has something. Everybody has a story. There's struggles everywhere. They're not going to necessarily always, advertise that. So stay off social media. Don't compare. Don't try to, compare yourself to whatever else is going on outside. What you have control over is you, your family unit, your loved ones, yourself, your inner world. Start there. Start with working on that and disregard the junk that you see online, because that's just going to mess with you and it's going to prevent you from stepping into your own greatness, which you deserve to do. You deserve to be able to live your best life for you and your family and then your community, and then it kind of grows from there. But start with that self reflection.
So, you talk about your own personal story, right? And so for a woman as yourself, talking about being divorced, toddler, things like that, where, again, these type of situations, people feel as though they can't get over even something that close, right? That's a major hurdle, a few major hurdles, if you will, right? So what encouraged you to get over the hump, or how do you encourage someone to say, hey, you know what, these are not as bad as you might think, to reach greatness, if you will?
Yeah, the thing that helped me kind of navigate my divorce, my son was 18 months old at the time, was I focused on my why, and my why was him. He was the one that got me out of bed every day. When I wanted to just throw the sheets over my head and bury myself in bed for the day, I didn't have that option. I didn't want that for myself anyways, but he's what drove me. So find your why and know that the current season, the current challenge that you're facing is not the end of the story. This is not the end of the book for you. This is just a season in life where there's challenges. So in my situation, I left corporate banking to have my son. And when my then husband asked for a divorce, I was unemployed. I wanted to be at home with him, so I was raising him. And I was completely in limbo. I was completely, I was shocked. I was afraid. I was, the grief, the trauma. I mean, all the emotions were just, amok. And there was so much to decide. It's like, oh my gosh, I need to figure out how to make income again. And I didn't want to go back to a corporate job because that means leaving him in daycare. Well, he lost dad already full time, so I can't let him lose mom.
Right.
And so I just, it was just one step at a time. And there were some days where, it was stormy. It was absolutely stormy. And it was not an easy ride. Sometimes it was, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back.
Right.
And it was not a linear healing situation. But for those going through something, I say just, have a why that keeps you focused on, what it is. Maybe the why is a loved one. Maybe the why is a organization that you want to impact. Maybe the why is for, just your own self. I mean, there's so many things that you can find your why. But just give yourself grace and give yourself patience. Know that it's not the end. And just don't try to figure out life all in one swoop. That was one thing I did too. I needed to figure out everything in life. I needed a plan. I needed to have a direction. And the reality was I needed to take one thing at a time. Sometimes it was 1 hour at a time when it was still very raw and new. I just had to get past the next hour.
So that idea of starting over and that fear, because sometimes that's fear, anxiety, things like that. How would someone change that atmosphere? Because sometimes it's not just mindset. Maybe it's the atmosphere they might need to change. Reading a book, like you said, finding their why. How else would someone get over that hump too?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's many steps that I took that helped me that were little steps. A lot of it was self-care. I made sure I exercised, as much as I could. I made sure that I, ate as well as I could. I spent time with my friends when I could. I took my son on little adventures that were, little hikes at the park. It was like little things. We used to go to the pet store and pet the animals and watch the fish. Just little things that brought him joy, that brought me joy. Find things that make you happy. Find things that bring you joy in some capacity, even as small as they are. Because if you're not well, if you're not the self-care piece, I know that self-care word is so, sometimes overused today, but it's not. It's so important because if you're not well, you can't be well for others. And I knew that if I wasn't in a good place, I couldn't be the mom that I wanted to be for my son.
Right.
So I had to focus on what else that I could do. I actually wrote a book, 50 Ways to Thrive After Divorce, and I'm happy to share it with your audience. It's a physical book. It's also an e-book that I can offer. But there's 50 things that I did to kind of navigate my way through the divorce. But again, like I mentioned earlier, give yourself grace and be gentle with yourself. Oftentimes we're in this race to like, oh my God, I got to hurry up and get better. I got to hurry up and heal. And I got to move on. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. And you'd be, shooting all over yourself. And it's just not a good place to be.
Right.
So just, love on yourself.
So as you're overcoming these, challenges, these hurdles, how did this help heal any challenges you might have had towards money and your financial state moving forward and through life?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I was my ex-husband didn't know anything about investing or money, and I was the one that did all the investing, and so I was very comfortable with it. However, post divorce, because I was just not, emotionally in a good place, and I was just trying to figure out life, I made some silly mistakes. I actually made some really bad decisions. A lot of it was based on fear, and I invested in things that I shouldn't have. I didn't understand them. And it was like I was desperate to try to catch up financially, and so I made a lot of silly mistakes. So take your time. If you're in a place and you kind of figure out what to do with your money, step back for a minute and be careful with what you're doing, and ask someone that you trust and that you know, for guidance. But just really, the process was a slow one. It wasn't like I suddenly became, really well after 6 months or a year. It was a very slow process. And if you make a mistake, be gentle with yourself and go, okay, well, I learned that lesson, and I'm going to go from here. And I'm a big believer that some of our most challenging experiences in life, some of the most painful ones, are the greatest opportunities for growth. They are the opportunities. There's lessons in every painful event. Now, in the middle of it, I didn't see it, certainly. And if someone told me that, I would have slapped them. I would have said, "You're crazy."
Right.
But in hindsight, I see that those painful events and experiences, and that continue, throughout my life. They are the place for growth. So if you can look at your challenges, if you're in the middle of something right now, rather than saying, why is this happening to me? I know this is a Tony Robbins thing, but I am a proponent of this. Rather than think, why is this happening to me? Why is it happening for me? What's the lesson? What's the lesson in this? How can I grow so that I can become maybe a better whatever for somebody else? How can I serve others with what I'm, what the experience that I'm having? How can I turn around someday and help someone else do this? And that's what I did when I post-divorce. I remember thinking, I'm going to help women someday work with money, because I know it's a very scary subject. And when I was working in the mortgage business, and then I was a financial advisor, I'd hear those conversations from women all the time. And that's what propelled me to leave my, comfortable job as a financial advisor and go out on my own, which is scary,
right?
Big leap of faith, and work as a financial and life coach.
So I listened to a podcast that you were on, did my little research, and you made this statement. I do, and you quoted someone in saying that men look at investing as a challenge, women look at investing as a threat, and in that, and not just investing, you could relate it to leaving a job or whatever it might be. The mindset is different. And a lot of times we don't want to get rid of the golden handcuffs, right? Because of, it can be a challenge. We don't want to face it, or it could be a threat. We don't want to lose what we have. We want to stay stable, so, how can people overcome that quote, if you will, and just working with you?
Yeah. So generally speaking, I'll step back, and not so much working with me, but just generally speaking in life, I would invite you to think about end of life, for lack of better words. I didn't want to, and this is sort of what one of the other pivotal things for me to leave my firm and then go out on my own, is that the fear of regret of not doing this was greater than the fear of doing it and then not doing well. So I was more afraid of looking back in life, like on my deathbed, going, "Oh God, I really wish I had done that," and I didn't, because I was afraid to step out on my own, versus staying in a consistent job that had a steady paycheck, which I get is a beautiful thing. And then later in life, going, "Gosh, I just I didn't really do what I wanted to do. I didn't fulfill really what I wanted to do in the world." So think about your, for those listening, think about your what does that end of life look like for you, and what regrets will you potentially look at, and then make those changes today. Just make those shifts. And it's very scary to leave a comfortable job. I mean, you lose benefits and medical and all that stuff. So there's a cautious way to do that shift. You just don't jump ship. You should be very mindful of how you navigate that. But it's quite interesting. But working with me, to your question, there's a lot of conversation, a lot of questions, a lot of digging, and we kind of unpack some of that story that they grew up with and what's playing in their subconscious mind, and get to some of those things that are creating their conditions today,
Mm-hmm.
and then we start to create a new path from that piece. And then from a strategic educational side, we talk about investing, and I show them all the nuances of that as well.
PattI, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate all the information you've given today. And as we're talking about, what they can get from you, how you can help them, how can they look forward to or get in touch with you to do that?
Yeah, so the ebook that I mentioned earlier, it's actually on my homepage of my website. It's called Women Soaring Solo. And in that book is those 50 ways that I mentioned to thrive after divorce. It's free. You just go onto my website, pattihandy.com. It's PATTIHANDY.com. The homepage, it shows, the download. You download that book, and then there's about a 30, 35-minute short training as well you can watch. That's the best way to get a hold of me and learn about me.
That's cool, PattI. Thank you very much for coming on today. But before I let you go, I'm going to ask you my would you rather question that I ask everyone.
Okay.
Would you rather choose 3 doors or a fork in the road?
That's a tricky one. I'm going to say a fork in the road.
And why is that?
I knew you were going to ask that. Well, it's a decision of 2 versus a decision of 3, right? And if I go down the wrong fork, I could just go, turn around and go back and go on the other fork. There's always a reverse in your car, right?
Right. And keep in mind, I didn't have any parameters. I just asked, which one would you choose?
Okay.
Some people are looking so deep into it, they want to know what the parameters were. I said, it's just a question. It's however you want to choose.
Yeah, I think I choose a fork in the road.
Cool. PattI, thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you, Maurice. It was great to be with you.
So same here. And continue to listen to That Will Never Work podcast.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Chisholm Group LLC and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work, or will it?